All right, folks, the Arya
Unveiled.
This one's been coming for a long time, and I wanted to take my time with this one because this unveiled technology that Hifiman is using, it seems to be making a bit of a splash. I think the headphones are for the most part getting really good reviews, but people are skeptical of like, why does it need to be open? Is it gonna break? All this stuff. And I think this is the most accessible one at this point in time, right? They've got the Arya, they've got the HE1000, they've got the Susvara Unveiled. So I guess what I wanted to make sure was that I was taking my time to make sure I had my thoughts properly wrapped around this headphone and just the idea of unveiled headphones in general. So that's why it's taken me so long to get to this. I've had this headphone for 2-3 months at this point in time. And I've listened to it a lot. I've listened to it in a lot of different circumstances. You know, a lot of listening here at my desk, but also a lot of listening bedside table and even just walking around with it. And all that was to test, you know, that I had my correct thoughts about this headphone, but also that to see if it would break, because I am skeptical, or was, of the Unveiled setup here. So let's talk about my experience with the Arya Unveiled. Of course, we'll talk about sound and all that stuff, and just kind of like my impression of where it sits in Hifiman's current lineup, because I have a lot of Hifiman headphones that they've sent to me. They sent this to me. I don't own this headphone, but they do allow me to keep these so I can, you know, make reviews and comparisons and things like that. So I'll get to keep it on hand here for a while, and that's why I do have a pretty good stock of like lots of other Hifiman headphones as well, is for that purpose. So let's dive into this guy. So what's the very quick kind of crib sheet specs on this? It's a planar magnetic headphone. If you know Hifiman, you know that's probably the case. 27 ohm impedance with a sensitivity of 94 dB. They spec it as having a frequency response of 8 hertz to 65 kilohertz, and it weighs 413 grams. It is a mainly plastic build. I mean, the headband system they've had in place forever for these higher end oval style headphones. And, you know, suspension strap, I don't know if it's real leather or fake leather, but it's comfortable. I like this setup of Hifiman headphones. I think they're very comfortable. I have had no durability issues with any of them. I enjoy all of these kind of like oval style builds specifically with this headband system, like the HE1000s, okay, and the Aryas before it. Obviously, what's new is it's open. You've got these cups that, whoops, I had them on the wrong way, that magnetize to keep on there for storage. And then you take them off to do your listening. You cannot listen to these closed back like that. That does not work. They are not meant to be used like that. They're meant to have you take those off. Now, the obvious response to that is, well, why did they do that? Why aren't all headphones like that if it's better, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, I would say, so there is a chance that you could ruin these drivers if you had like a screw or a nail up here or a screwdriver or something and it would like poke through the membrane. But I think the odds, after using it, the odds of that happening are actually pretty slim. I have experienced benefits of having a headphone open up like this in the past. Specifically, I'm thinking of the HE6 SEV2. A lot of people take that headphone, which is another Hifiman headphone, and they remove the grills on the back, the mesh, and they either leave it off or they'll put in like a thinner one or whatnot. And I do think that helped that headphone in that specific instance. So I'd say there's at least anecdotal evidence for unveiling a headphone and that having some sonic benefits. Now, so I guess the first thing I'm going to say is if you're concerned about this breaking, I think those fears are largely unfounded. I have been using this headphone, like I said, for 2 or 3 months, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I just took these off when I got it, and I just left them off. And I've been moving this around the house. I've been listening to it around the house. I haven't babied this headphone at all, and I haven't put these protective cups back on, and it has been fine. Am I recommending that you do that? No. And Hifiman probably wouldn't recommend that you did that, but I thought for review purposes, I thought it was a good idea. And like I said, I didn't have any issues with it. So let's get that out of the way just at this point in time. Now, these come in at almost $1,500. $1,449 is what they come in at. And I think one of the big questions that was in my mind as well is that I've got the HE1000 V2, or excuse me, not the HE1000 V2, the HE1000 SE. They're getting so many versions of these different headphones at this point in time. Like, I honestly, it's getting hard for me to keep track of as a reviewer when I have like different ones of them and stuff like that. But anyway, this right here is like my favorite Hifiman headphone. That's reasonably affordable, right? I've tried the Susvara. I thought it was awesome. Haven't listened to it in a while. I'm sure the new Susvara is amazing too. I'm sure the new HE1000 Unveiled is amazing as well. I haven't heard it, right? This is the one I've got, and I love this headphone. I think it's an amazing headphone, and it clocks in at about the same price as the Arya Unveiled at this point in time, okay? So that was another big question, is like, do you go for the Arya Unveiled or do you go to the HE1000 SE? So let's talk about why you might want to do either one. Now, a little bit about me as a listener before we get into sonic characteristics of these is I tend to prefer acoustic, like folk music, tend to. I listen to a little bit of everything. I've been getting a little more into kind of like chill, hip hop, lo-fi stuff lately. I also did a lot of listening to like the Wicked soundtrack because I really like, Cynthia, I don't know, the Wicked Witch in that movie. I think I saw that movie and I thought, wow, this lady has a voice. So I've been listening to a lot of her stuff. So that's some of the context of this. Now, for my general everyday listening, like my typical genres, acoustic, folk, classic rock stuff, I'm gonna come out and tell you right now that for most songs, I prefer the HE1000 SE. I feel like it's a little bit more detailed. It's got a little bit more upper end to it. I just find it a little more engaging and exciting to listen to. Now, that being said, as far as like soundtrack stuff, like the Wicked soundtrack, I think that is really where the Arya Unveiled shines. That's where it's a very large sounding headphone. It does soundscaping imaging really, really well. And it just has a great frequency response to where nothing really feels like it's being pushed on you, but you have access to all the stuff you want to kind of dial into and listen to. And vocals sound really, really good on it. I mean, vocals sound really, really good on the HE1000 SE too. Probably better on that, in my opinion, but this just is kind of a good do-it-all headphone type of a situation going on here. Now, one thing that I thought was interesting is certainly amplification matters. I found it to be harder to find a good amp match with the Arya Unveiled than the HE1000 SE. I feel like the HE1000 SE sounds good on almost everything. This, I think you got to dial it in a little bit. Now, it's not like it sounds bad on most things or anything like that, but I was interested to find, I was doing I had the APOS Gremlin that I was testing, so I got my Valley 2 out just mainly to do that comparison. But what I found was that the Valley 2 with a JJ tube in it was actually my favorite pairing with the Arya Unveiled here, which really surprised me. I think it just, the frequency response is, so kind of balanced and neutrally flat on the Unveiled here that I felt like putting it on the Valley 2 with tubes just bumped the interest level up a little bit, added a little more dimension to the sound, and I don't know, just played with the frequency response in a really pleasant way, I guess. So that was actually my favorite way to listen to it. Whereas the HE1000 SE, like I said, I can just put on anything and really enjoy it. The other thing that was in my mind as I'm thinking about the Arya Unveiled is how it stacks up to previous gen Aryas, because I really liked the Arya Organic, and I think actually for the folky acoustic stuff, I think it's actually better in my opinion for that stuff because it pushes the vocals a little bit forward. It's just a little bit more forward of a headphone than this guy is. And that one, you can get for around maybe $900 at this point. But then there's also the Arya Stealth, that you can now get for like 600 bucks. So I compared that, and I think that's actually pretty close to this one. Like, this one's better, to be clear. I like this one better than that one in almost every regard, like, because I thought that one was really kind of flat and boring sounding. So I do think this is like, if you're going for that kind of neutrally flat sound, but you don't want it boring, I think that's where this guy comes in and does a really, really nice job. I think it has very well controlled highs. I would almost prefer a little bit more in most cases. Again, HE1000 SE, but you could tweak that a little bit again with tubes and maybe an EQ and stuff like that. The low end is really good on these guys. They do go really low. I mean, 8 hertz is maybe a stretch. I mean, I wouldn't be able to hear it anyway, I don't think, but I do think they do low end really, really well controlled. Again, soundtracky type stuff that just is big sounds really good on these. I think it does that better than the HE1000 SE, although I feel like the HE1000 SE is maybe a little bit punchier, but this guy maybe does it a little more controlled and does the bigger sounding stuff a little bit better, is where I'm at with it. So, is it a good headphone? I think it's a fantastic headphone. Is the Unveiled technology the way to go? I mean, I don't know at this point. I would say I think this is the most technically capable Arya that I've listened to. I do think there's a noticeable improvement in most regards over something like the Arya Stealth, which was, you know, a couple of gens ago or whatever. I think the Arya Organic is kind of a different beast altogether, because the frequency response is a little bit different. And so again, I think it's hard to draw a line between this one. I think this one's technically better, but I prefer the Organic in most cases. But I'm also not a big like soundtrack listener type of a guy, right? So I guess I should probably wrap this up in some sort of cohesive way, right? I think this is for you if you've liked previous Aryas and you want the best version of the Arya. If you didn't like previous versions of the Arya, I think maybe I would look more like the HE1000 as opposed to spending the money on this. I would go for either the new Unveiled one if you don't mind spending like 2,500 bucks, or just get the SE is amazing for around 1,500 or whatever it is these days. I'll link to it below so you can check prices and things like that. I think if you listen to soundtrack type stuff and you like big sounding music and you want a relatively neutral response, I think again that's where this guy I would look really closely at. I guess for me, if I'm picking my headphone for everyday use, I'm picking the HE1000 SE, or I'm saving some money and picking the Arya Organic, is what I would do. But that's again for like my very folky, acoustic-y, classic rocky, you know, genres that I mainly listen to. But this is a good headphone. This is a really good headphone. And I think if what I said, you know, if you're the type of person that I said I think this suits, I think you should definitely give it a look. If you don't feel like you have the budget for this, then I think go ahead and pick up an Arya Stealth and see what you think of that, or an Edition XS, which is like under 300 bucks now. Those are all phenomenal headphones that you can get slightly different flavors. The XS, you know, it's not gonna have the detail and technical ability and resolution as something like the Arya, the HE1000 line, but it's a fun headphone, has a lot of bass, is an exciting headphone to listen to, pretty cheap. The Arya Stealth, if you like a really neutral one, that might be for you. A lot of people love that headphone. It is just, like I said, a little flat and boring to me. I think this is a much better headphone all around than that headphone for me. So it's a great headphone. I would really be interested to try the Unveiled HE1000 just because I love that SE one. And Hi-Fi Man, I think, gosh, I wouldn't want to be a headphone maker going up against them. I think every single price point, especially now that they're keeping like some of those older models around with price cuts, like every single price point, they have a headphone that just absolutely is a screamer at this point in time, in a good way, right? Like, I don't know. They've got the market like covered from, so everything down from, you know, an open box Sandara that's maybe gonna run you like 180 bucks or something, to the XS that's, like I said, around like $300 now, to the Nano, which is a phenomenal headphone that I enjoy, to the Arya Stealth that's like $600, to the Organic, to the Unveiled, to the HE1000 SE. Man, they just have great headphones at every price point. You've got so much to play with, and you know, maybe the way to go is to start at the entry and then just work your way up. But if you're looking for one headphone to rule them all, I think for me it's still the 1000 SE. But if you like the bigger sounding stuff and you want a flat response, this guy's definitely worth a look. And I don't really think you have to worry about breaking it, if I'm being honest with you, especially if you leave it at your desk and you leave your cups on it, you know, and you just take them off to listen. I don't think you're gonna have any trouble in that regard. So I think that's gonna wrap it up. What do you think of the Unveiled stuff? Is it a dumb idea? Have you listened to them? Do you think they're fantastic? Where do you stand on all that? Drop those comments down below. Thank you to Hifiman for sending this stuff out for review and let me kind of keep them on hand so I can do some of these comparisons and tests. That's always super helpful, I think. And of course, thanks to you for listening and watching. And waiting around for this review, because I know some of you have been waiting for a while on it. So thanks all around for all that stuff. Thanks for being with me. Hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.